Steelers Nation, we have a lot to unpack from this preseason game, and there's a lot more beneath the surface than just the final score. From the very first snap, it was clear that this game was more about opportunity than outcome. Many of the players who had not yet seen the field were finally able to get their feet wet, shake off the rust from the offseason, and experience live-game situations. This isn't just about the stars or the veterans. This is about the next tier of players trying to prove themselves, trying to show that they belong on this roster or at least somewhere in the league. There is always a level of urgency at the end of the preseason. Players know this is their moment to either cement their place or risk being overlooked as the final roster decisions approach. It is a time when performance under pressure matters more than the stat sheet, because coaches are watching not just for results, but for effort, execution, and the ability to respond to challenges. The Carolina Panthers, by contrast, took a very different approach. They chose to sit almost their entire roster, including their top quarterbacks, which is always a bold decision, but one that speaks to their priorities. It's an interesting strategy because it gives the perception that they're letting the game slide in favor of protecting key players, but it also opens a window for young players to show something. Even with their starters largely absent, the Panthers presented just enough resistance to keep the Steelers' offense on its toes, and it also gave us a chance to see which Steelers could adapt in a more chaotic or unpredictable game environment. Focusing on the first half, we saw a mixture of precision and miscues. One quarterback, Skyler, stood out with a near-perfect performance, completing every pass he attempted and putting together a touchdown drive without turning the ball over. This kind of performance not only energizes the coaching staff, but also makes a statement about reliability and readiness. It demonstrates an ability to handle the pressure, even in a preseason setting where the stakes are different, but the scrutiny is just as intense. In contrast, some other players, despite their talent, struggled to find rhythm. Interceptions and missed opportunities reminded everyone that preseason stats are not just numbers. They're learning moments to adjust and improve before the regular season begins. The rushing game was another focal point, and there were flashes of promise combined with areas needing refinement. Certain backs showed physicality and vision, making gains on designed runs and occasionally breaking free for significant yardage, while others were held in check, highlighting the ongoing need for cohesion along the offensive line. It is also clear that timing and execution remain critical, as the difference between a big play and a short gain can often come down to the smallest details in blocking or route running. Despite the ups and downs, there were encouraging moments that suggest the ground game could become more consistent once the roster is finalized and everyone has a chance to gel in live scenarios. Penalties were a story throughout the game. The Steelers committed a number of them, and not all were the result of inexperience. Some were starters making mistakes that, in a regular season context, could be costly. This is a reminder that discipline and focus are as much a part of preparation as physical ability. Even in a preseason setting, these mental lapses can snowball, affecting rhythm and flow. On the defensive side, the Steelers showed moments of dominance, as well as moments where timing and positioning left opportunities for the opposing offense. Individual players, particularly younger defensive linemen, had flashes of brilliance that suggested potential impact beyond the preseason. Their ability to disrupt plays, pressure the quarterback, and make tackles in critical areas was impressive, and it is the kind of performance that can elevate a player from a developmental role to a contributor on game day. Injuries, naturally, remain a part of the discussion. Some incidents sparked concern when a player had to leave the field, prompting immediate attention from the sideline and the medical staff. Even when it looked serious in the moment, further observation revealed that some players were able to return with minimal impact. However, it is important to remember that being back on the sidelines, smiling and joking, does not automatically mean a player is ready for full contact or for the regular season. The Steelers' coaching staff and medical team are evaluating each case carefully, balancing the need for readiness with the long-term health of the athletes. Even minor injuries can affect the rotation and decisions on final roster spots, especially when players are competing for limited positions and the margin between making the team or not is razor thin. One of the most notable developments from this game was the emergence of a few young defenders who demonstrated skills that could make an immediate impact. Wyatt Black, for instance, had consecutive plays where he dominated his matchups and showed a combination of strength, speed, and awareness that is rare for a rookie. Performances like this don't just impress fans. They catch the attention of coaches who are looking for players who can contribute in multiple ways. This is the stage where future starters start to separate themselves from the rest of the pack, and the ability to consistently perform in these moments could define a player's career trajectory. Watching a player take control of a situation, win individual battles, and influence the game flow is energizing, and it reminds everyone why preseason evaluation is critical beyond the final score. The quarterback situation continues to evolve, particularly in the lower depth chart. While Howard remains a promising prospect, the performance of Skyler during this game raises important questions about the third-string role. Completing the majority of his passes, moving the offense effectively, and avoiding mistakes under pressure makes a compelling argument for him to hold that spot. Coaches are forced to make decisions not solely based on reputation or potential, but on actual performance, and the clarity provided by these preseason moments is invaluable. It's the kind of debate that will likely extend into the final roster cut discussions, as coaches weigh immediate readiness against developmental potential, trying to balance the team's needs with the future vision of the roster. On offense, there were several young receivers and running backs who made noticeable contributions. Some showed speed and agility that could create mismatches against defenses, while others showed toughness and the ability to gain yards after contact. Each play, each route, each block is part of a larger evaluation process that informs roster decisions. It is clear that the coaching staff is looking not just for talent, but for versatility, reliability, and the ability to perform consistently. In some cases, small differences in performance could be the deciding factor between a player making the roster, being placed on the practice squad, or finding opportunities elsewhere. As the clock winds down on the preseason, the Steelers are using these opportunities to identify which players have the capability to impact the team immediately and which ones will need more time to develop. The performance of rookies, the recovery of injured players, the execution of special teams, and the handling of high-pressure moments all contribute to a complex mosaic that the coaching staff is evaluating with meticulous attention. Each play, each drive, and each interaction on the field informs decisions that could determine the composition of the roster, the depth chart, and ultimately the team's competitive edge when the regular season begins. Players are auditioning not only for spots on the roster, but for the chance to influence the outcome of games, to establish themselves as reliable contributors, and to create a foundation for future success. As we dive deeper into the action of the game, one of the clearest takeaways is how crucial these preseason matchups are for players trying to solidify their place in the league. For many of the Steelers' roster hopefuls, every play was an audition, a chance to show not just skill, but football intelligence, awareness, and the ability to perform under conditions that mimic the intensity of the regular season. The moments that might seem small, a well-timed blitz, a perfectly executed block, a cutback run that avoids multiple tacklers, carry enormous weight in the eyes of the coaching staff. For younger defensive linemen, for example, showing quickness off the line and the ability to read the quarterback's intentions can instantly elevate their perceived value. Wyatt Black, in particular, demonstrated an extraordinary combination of technique and raw power. His consecutive plays of domination were not isolated incidents. They were signals of a player with the potential to become a foundational piece of the defensive front. Watching him handle blockers with authority and disrupt offensive schemes gives fans a glimpse of what could be a game-changing presence in the coming years. On the offensive side, the running backs who manage to break tackles and generate positive yardage are beginning to separate themselves from their peers. Players like Nichols and Sermon displayed a blend of physicality, vision, and patience that allowed them to maximize their opportunities despite the occasional lapse in blocking or alignment issues up front. The offensive line itself, while not perfect, showed cohesion in key moments, opening lanes for successful runs and giving quarterbacks the time necessary to make accurate throws. Even though penalties occasionally disrupted rhythm, The flashes of execution suggest that with refinement, this unit has the potential to be a reliable engine for the team's offense throughout the season. Every carry, every designed run, and every gap exploited contributes to the narrative of who might step into a consistent role once the roster is finalized. Quarterback depth remains one of the most intriguing storylines emerging from this game. Skyler, with his precise passes and touchdown drive, provided a clear demonstration of capability and readiness. This performance raises legitimate questions about the hierarchy behind the starting quarterback and whether Howard, despite his potential, should remain ahead on the depth chart. Coaches must weigh performance under pressure, decision-making skills, and the ability to adapt in real time against the ceiling of a player's potential. Preseason action like this can accelerate a player's rise or solidify their position, and Skyler's display, coupled with his composure in the pocket, may very well have cemented him as a crucial component of the quarterback rotation this season. The debate over who should occupy the third-string position is not just theoretical. It has tangible implications for the team's preparedness, injury contingency plans, and overall offensive versatility. Special teams continue to be an understated but essential part of the equation. Punter and kicker performances, while appearing routine on the surface, reveal a lot about consistency, mental focus, and the ability to handle pressure situations. Ben Sauls, for instance, demonstrated accuracy and distance that could make him a valuable asset not only to the Steelers, but to any team seeking stability in this often overlooked phase of the game. Every kick, every punt, and every field position play contributes to the overall strategy, and a dependable special teams unit can be the difference between winning close contests and struggling in key moments. The defensive secondary also deserves attention. While individual mistakes were visible, especially in coverage assignments or tackling, there were flashes of brilliance that suggest a growing understanding of defensive schemes and situational awareness. Rookies and young defensive backs who navigated the field with anticipation and executed coverage responsibilities effectively provided encouragement to the coaching staff. Their ability to read the quarterback, anticipate routes, and react quickly to unfolding plays is vital, especially as the team transitions from preseason to the higher stakes of the regular season. Moments like these often foreshadow the emergence of players who can turn a close game with a critical interception, a deflection, or a decisive tackle. As the clock ticks down on these final preseason games, injuries inevitably factor into the equation. While some incidents initially cause concern, further evaluation often reveals that many are minor or manageable with proper recovery and medical oversight. Players returning to the sideline, smiling and joking, offer a degree of reassurance, but the coaching and medical teams approach these situations with caution, fully aware that long-term readiness and health must be prioritized over short-term appearances. Even a seemingly small injury can affect depth chart decisions, practice rotations, and ultimately the composition of the game day roster, so careful monitoring and gradual reintegration are standard practice. One of the most compelling storylines is the emergence of versatile players who can impact multiple areas of the game. Receivers who can contribute on special teams, running backs who can pass protect, and defensive players capable of lining up in multiple formations provide the coaching staff with flexibility and options as the season progresses. These players often become pivotal during injuries or tactical adjustments, allowing the team to adapt dynamically to the challenges presented by opponents. For instance, a player like Lance McCutcheon demonstrated skill and athleticism that could make him a key contributor in rotational roles or on the practice squad, while being ready to step up in more significant ways when called upon. The ability to contribute across multiple dimensions often determines which players are retained in tight roster battles and which are left looking for opportunities elsewhere. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The news coming out of Pittsburgh has set the entire football community buzzing, with rumors swirling that Tyler Huntley, the former Miami Dolphins quarterback, has officially signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. While the team has not yet released an official statement, insiders close to the franchise have been hinting at a major quarterback move for weeks, and now speculation is reaching fever pitch. Fans and analysts alike are dissecting every possible angle of this supposed deal, questioning not only what it means for Huntley's career, but also for the immediate future of the Steelers' offense. Huntley, who had brief but notable moments with the Dolphins, never quite found solid ground in Miami, struggling to carve out his role in a crowded quarterback room. Yet his athleticism, mobility, and flashes of accuracy were enough to keep him on the radar of other NFL teams, and it appears Pittsburgh might have seen an untapped opportunity. The Steelers, known historically for valuing grit and resilience at the quarterback position, could be looking at Huntley as a bridge option, a backup with starting potential, or even a surprise challenger to the presumed starter. Whatever the role, the rumor has sparked intense debates across the league. As whispers continue to grow louder, one of the central points of discussion is how Huntley's skill set could potentially mesh with the Steelers' current offensive philosophy. Pittsburgh has traditionally prided itself on a balanced attack, leaning on a punishing ground game while demanding poise and decision-making from a quarterback. Huntley, with his dual-threat ability, offers a new wrinkle to that approach. His legs allow him to extend plays, escape collapsing pockets, and create opportunities that more traditional passers cannot. However, questions remain about his consistency and ability to sustain drives against elite defenses, something that has haunted him during his previous stops. Still, Steelers fans are beginning to imagine scenarios in which Huntley's presence forces opposing teams to account for more unpredictability, potentially opening up the playbook in ways not seen in years. If head coach Mike Tomlin is indeed considering Huntley as more than just a backup, this could mark a philosophical shift that excites a fan base hungry for innovation after seasons of offensive struggles. And if nothing else, the rumor has injected a shot of excitement into Pittsburgh's preseason narrative, a storyline filled with both intrigue and uncertainty. The Dolphins' decision to move on from Huntley also raises interesting questions about timing and opportunity. Miami had invested heavily in its quarterback depth, and Huntley never truly got the consistent snaps required to prove himself on a bigger stage. For Pittsburgh, however, the situation looks different. The Steelers have been searching for stability under center since the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger, experimenting with a combination of young talent and veterans without fully committing to a long-term solution. If Huntley's rumored signing proves to be true, this could be framed as a low-risk, high-reward gamble, the type of move that doesn't shake the foundation but can alter the trajectory of a season if it pays off. His time in Miami, though limited, showed flashes of leadership and adaptability that caught the eye of scouts. In a city like Pittsburgh, where fans demand toughness and expect every player to embrace the steel curtain mentality, Huntley could find an environment more conducive to growth. The very idea of him wearing the black and gold is enough to fuel talk shows, podcasts, and social media debates, with some already labeling him as a sleeper candidate to surprise doubters this season. There's also the question of chemistry within the locker room, something that cannot be underestimated when evaluating how a player might fit into a new franchise. Huntley arrives, at least in rumor, with a reputation for humility and hard work, traits that align perfectly with the Steelers' blue-collar identity. Veterans on the team are said to appreciate quarterbacks who listen as much as they lead, and Huntley's experience as both a backup and an occasional starter could give him credibility without threatening established hierarchies too aggressively. Moreover, the Steelers' offensive weapons, from dynamic receivers to a bruising running back core, might benefit from a quarterback willing to spread the ball around and improvise under pressure. It's not hard to imagine Huntley forming quick bonds with his teammates, especially if his underdog story resonates with those who themselves have had to claw for respect in the league. This cultural fit could be just as important as his on-field talent. And if the reports are accurate, Pittsburgh might have quietly positioned itself to explore a new chapter of identity while keeping expectations measured. The locker room dynamic could end up being the deciding factor in whether Huntley thrives or fades into the background once again. Ultimately, what makes this rumor so captivating is not only the player involved, but the broader implications for the Steelers' strategy. Huntley's supposed signing has become less about the certainty of his role and more about what it symbolizes. A team unwilling to settle, willing instead to keep experimenting until the right formula is found. For the fans, the speculation represents hope, the idea that maybe the missing piece is finally falling into place, even if the rest of the league doesn't immediately recognize it. For analysts, it sparks conversations about the evolution of the quarterback position in Pittsburgh and whether the franchise is truly prepared to embrace change. Huntley himself, if this news holds true, is walking into a high-pressure environment where expectations are simultaneously low and sky-high. Low because few anticipate him as a savior, but sky-high because every Steelers quarterback is inevitably judged against legends of the past. This tension between hope and skepticism is what makes the story so compelling. Whether the rumor proves true or not, the simple possibility of Huntley donning the Steelers uniform has already reshaped the preseason narrative, leaving fans anxiously waiting for confirmation that could ignite an entirely new era. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.